Hello! Welcome to the second episode of my development blog here for a video game I'm working on. Doesn't truly have a title, as you can see up here. I've already changed this title to Subnet. Don't know if Subnet or Emergent will ever stick, but those are the two names I'm working with right now. It's going to be if you haven't seen episode 1, I definitely recommend watching it. This game is going to be a hacking simulator, similar to Uplink and Hacknet. So last week we showed some progress on a clock, and this last week and a half or so that I've been working since the last episode, I've been diving into a new system from Unity 3D called the UI Toolkit. It's a new UI editing system that they've been developing that feels a lot more my wheelhouse than the other types of UI. In particular, the reason why is because it uses a lot of web design framework, such as CSS styles, or not exactly CSS styles, but it's kind of similarly based. It uses UXML to build out the UIs, how they're like all hierarchied, and then it can kind of generate them on the fly. So to kind of give an example here, this is the desktop I'm working on here. Actually, I'm not sure if you can see this. Let me see here. Cannot. Alright, let me fix things so that you can see them. Right back. Alright, we're back. So as you can see, this is a new system called the UI Builder. It's for designing your user interfaces in the new UI Toolkit. So I won't get too much into it. I'm not going to write a tutorial or anything, but basically what makes it really handy for me is that this stuff over here is basically almost identical to web development styles. So I'm not an expert on CSS styles, but I do back-end web development, so I've had to dabble with it every now and then. So it's not necessarily my bread and butter, but it's not too far off. So this stuff is more familiar to me, and kind of the drag and drop approach to getting stuff onto the screen and figuring out how to get them to sit side by side and play nice, that's all stuff that's fairly familiar to me. So it's gone rather well. It's been a little bit of a struggle to kind of get myself up to speed, but I feel like I'm starting to get into the swing of things. So I'm rather enjoying it. So basically, I'll just give a quick overview, but everything is stored in these UXMLs, which you can preview it right here. This one's not a great one because it uses templates, so it's not a great, but basically all the different objects that you're having in here will be stored in here. For instance, this bar up here is the UI template desktop header, and then around it is a visual element called the desktop, and then you can place more stuff into it. It's kind of just like a drag and drop. Say you just wanted to add something in onto the desktop, and then you want it to be below the header, you can drop it in, and then you can change these various settings. It's all pretty straightforward, and I've been working with it in various ways. So for instance, one of the things I've been working on, let's give you an example of something I've done, is I've created a prefab called data panes. It's kind of just experimenting with the idea of making windows like panes. Since we're doing like a hacking game, so maybe there'd be some sort of UI panel system. So if we drag that in here, I think I just have to set it to the outer. I just need to set this to data pane. There we go. Should be all set. So if we go into preview, yep. So that's working. The controls are still a little bit off, but there's some drag functionality here. I think it just doesn't like, there might be something I need to tweak, but I started to figure out how to get stuff to drag around. I've also started to figure out how to get it to detect double clicks, all important stuff for working with Windows. The other thing that I have working now is this clock, which would be better easier to see over here in the actual play window here, which if we hit play, we should see the clock moving. Yep. It did take a little bit of work to get this transferred over actually, because there's different ways to hook into the UI than what you would normally do with Unity's UI types. So that took a little bit of work, but overall the logic is the same. And so I've added these buttons. I haven't hooked up fast yet, but pause works and play works. So the clock is controlled. Obviously I need to do some styling so that these guys don't shift left and right like that, but that shouldn't be terribly difficult. So yeah, the UI Toolkit is an excellent system. The main drawback right now is that it's not fully released. I don't know if I mentioned that before. So it's still a work in progress, but it is available on various preview versions of Unity. And for me at least, it's been a very strong starting point for really diving into the UI. When I was using the UI systems before, I was kind of struggling with it because you have to make everything from scratch. Versus at least there's a sort of like basic scaffolding framework for me to work with, which I think will work very well. The only things I'm concerned about would be advanced animations. I know that that's not currently something the UI Toolkit can currently do. But I think for the time being, for doing a prototype, getting a lot of the logic scripts of the gameplay all sorted out will be excellent. So for instance, right now we have a game manager, which just helps us point to the UI using this UI document and this script. And then we have game time, which just has the clock, time scale, that sort of stuff. But we'll continue to flesh out the data that we get stored and how we're accessing the different parts of the game, like how we're going to access the different servers and all the different abilities that you get, all that good stuff, like inventory, what type of computer you have, those things. So next steps, I think, is probably going to be to continue to build kind of a one-for-one copy of Uplink's UI. So probably next would be like a toolbar across the bottom with buttons. When you click the buttons, these sorts of panels open up with data information in them. And then probably some sort of like server data system scroll area right here where you can click something to connect to it. I think that's going to kind of be our next steps going forward. I don't anticipate there being too many problems since it's mostly just going to be buttons, which is pretty straightforward. Clicking the buttons causes something to appear. That'll be a little bit new. Because that's like adding a template to the screen and making sure all the settings get set up correctly, and make sure it gets connected to data. But once that's sorted out, I think that's going to be one of the heaviest things that we'll have to do. Everything else should be using most of what we've already done, all of the things I've already gotten done. So it'll just be a matter of slowly progressing forward, doing stuff like your gateway information, your memory storage. So not crazy ton to discuss in this episode, but I am rather proud of the progress I've made so far, and I am looking forward to seeing where things go with this. So thank you for joining me on this dev blog. I hope it's been enlightening, and I hope to see you guys on the next episode. I was thinking perhaps one extra thing we could do on the next episode is maybe do some idea spitballing on the fly. So you can look forward to that. I hope to see you guys on the next episode. Bye-bye.